From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. We're in the home stretch in the Alabama Legislature's 2025 regular session. Today was the 28th day, leaving just 2 more remaining. That seemed to contribute to a sense of urgency today, especially in the Senate, which began passing bills in rapid succession this afternoon. Let's hit the high points. The Senate today gave final passage to legislation known as the Speedy Trial Act. House Bill 307 from State Representative Jim Hill empowers the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court to appoint visiting judges, either sitting or retired circuit judges, to preside over specific violent crime cases upon request from the Attorney General or a district attorney. Championed by Attorney General Steve Marshall, the bill marks a significant step towards addressing the state's backlog of violent crime cases. Marshall's chief counsel, Catherine Robertson, emphasized that the legislation was introduced in response to persistent concerns about continuances in violent crime cases, which have led to significant bottlenecks in certain judicial circuits, mounting frustration among victims.
We decided to bring it because of repeated complaints, specifically about continuances in violent crime cases. There are significant bottlenecks in certain circuits in our state where violent crime cases are not moving quickly and victims are getting frustrated. And so we had a global law enforcement meeting in Birmingham last summer where we discussed kind of all the challenges that people were facing, and backlogged cases just kept coming up. So that was the impetus for this. How it will impact crime victims. Look, it's not going to solve every case. It's not going to make every case move quickly. But the ones that have been sitting for a particularly long time that the DA or the AG really have on their radar as a priority, we hope that this will mean that those get moving quickly.
That bill passed unanimously. Another unanimous vote in the Senate today paved the way for another drop in the state's sales tax on groceries. House Bill 386 now heads to Governor Kay Ivey's desk and, if signed, will lower the state sales tax on food from 3% to 2% starting September 1st. It's the second reduction in as many years, part of a broader bipartisan effort to help families struggling with rising grocery costs. Senator Andrew Jones, who's backed the measure throughout, explained why lawmakers felt now was the time to move forward.
You may remember we passed legislation 2 years ago to basically take down a penny at a time. We took off the first cent. The second cent was going to come off when we hit a growth metric of 3.5%. We have not met that, but our budget chairman feel comfortable in going ahead and moving forward with taking that next cent off of the grocery tax. It's a big deal. It's a big tax cut. I think the fiscal note is $121.9 million.
The Senate also passed a sweeping bill to regulate consumable hemp products, responding to what lawmakers call a growing public health threat. House Bill 445 from State Representative Andy Witt and carried in the Senate by State Senator Tim Melson passed by a vote of 19 to 13. It would give the Alabama Alcoholic Beverage Control Board authority to oversee the manufacture, sale, and distribution of hemp-based items. The bill bans inhalable hemp products like vapes, flowers, and buds. It limits edible THC content to 5 milligrams per serving, and it restricts sales to those over 21.
2 years ago, we put an age 21 limit on it, and that wasn't exactly being followed like it was supposed to be. And so we were having issues with superintendents having a lot of students overdose and being carried off to the hospital, and it was just time to get control of it and get it out of convenience stores. As you know, most rules are made for a few bad actors, and this is a classic example of we had to get control of it for the few bad actors. I think I had about 3 or 4 weeks ago, our DA arrested 6 convenience store operators in one day, and they got several more that they're on a watch list. But it's a problem, and it's an unnecessary problem. As we all know, the hemp bill was never intended for consumption. It was all about economics, such as paper, rope, and clothing.
That bill was amended in the Senate and will have to go back to the House for final passage. A new shark alert system that warns beachgoers when a shark has bitten someone in the vicinity will be established in Alabama under a bill signed today by Governor Kay Ivey. Dubbed Lulu's Law, the legislation was inspired by Lulu Gribben, a Mountain Brook teenager who was attacked by a shark last year, losing a leg and part of her arm. There's Lulu right there with Governor Ivey and bill sponsor Representative David Faulkner. Lulu has turned her traumatic experience into advocacy, urging lawmakers at the federal and state levels to take action. The state will set up an alert system similar to Amber Alerts that will buzz the cell phones of any beachgoers in the vicinity of a recent shark attack. A major win today for public health advocates at the Alabama State House as the Senate passed a long-awaited vaping reform bill. House Bill 8, sponsored by State Representative Barbara Drummond, has been years in the making. Drummond has pushed repeatedly for tougher restrictions on vape sales, especially products marketed toward minors. The measure aims to crack down on the sale of non-approved vape products and tighten enforcement on retailers selling to underage users. It now heads to the governor's desk after clearing both chambers. Senator David Sessions, who carried the bill in the Senate, says the legislation is necessary in response to a growing epidemic among young people. He spoke passionately today about why the state must act now.
We have an epidemic going on in this state with our young people. They are getting sick. I think one of our colleagues said they had 6 in their county or in their area this past week that went to the hospital, and they had all had bad experience with a vape product. These products are harming our young people. We're not dealing with something that is a healthy product. This product is not a product that we should be ingesting into our lungs. So we are just trying to protect our children. You know, if you're 21 years old and you're old enough to make your own decisions, if you want to do something that's bad for your body, that's your choice. Hey, I'm good with that. But this is about our children. I have 5 huge reasons to pass this piece of legislation. My grandchildren.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I said, it's an honor to be able to drop this bill.
The board that governs the Alabama Department of Archives and History may be changing in the future. The House today took up and passed Senate Bill 5 from State Senator Chris Elliott. It would change the board from its current self-perpetuating structure to being appointed by various state leaders, similar to other state boards. Elliott's effort began 2 years ago after the Department of Archives and History hosted a lunch event focused on the history of gay and lesbian Alabamians.
What is it about this board that says we need the governor to sit on this board as a voting member?
I think it just makes it like our other boards. Like, I mean, there's, like I said a while ago, there's 3 flagship museums in the state. One is the Battleship in your area, and then the Rocket Center in North Alabama, and then the Archives. And so it brings them all in line.
So if I go look up the Battleship, then the governor is going to be a sitting voting board
I'd have
member?
to look that up. I'm not sure. Somebody can look it up for us.
That's what,
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we're saying, that we're going to make this board like the Huntsville board and like the Mobile board.
Well, we did the Rocket Center. We reconstituted the Rocket Center board earlier in the session, just like we're doing this one. And when we did the Rocket Center board, she was added as the 18th member, and that was the bill that Representative Lovern passed.
That bill was amended on the House floor, so it will have to go back to the Senate for final passage. The House also took up multiple immigration-related bills today. Senate Bill 53 from State Senator Wes Kitchens would establish the crime of human smuggling and provide penalties for harboring or transporting illegal immigrants. It was carried in the House by State Representative Ben Robbins.
It codifies a practice that jail administrators are already doing now in terms of reporting illegal immigrant detainees and verifying their immigration status. And the second thing it does, it creates the crime of human smuggling, which is knowingly transporting an illegal immigrant for commercial purposes. I have a sub, sorry. That sub amends the amends exceptions, which allows for healthcare providers and any person operating for commercial and religious purposes, they are not guilty of committing the crime of human smuggling. For
If I'm even using my own personal car, that would still be considered commercial? If I was transporting someone that was illegal?
If you know that person is illegal immigrant, then yes, it would be.
How would that person know? I mean, so you're saying it's a responsibility if you're helping someone that you check and say, before you get in my car, are you legal?
No, because you're helping that person. You're doing it for charitable or religious purposes or reason, not for a commercial motive.
Big news today for the long-awaited Mobile River Bridge and Bayway project. The Alabama Department of Transportation today announced it was formally moving forward with the project with the firm Kiewit-Massman Trailer. That marks a significant milestone for getting the project underway. But just a few hours after that announcement, the news got even better. The U.S. Department of Transportation announced that it will release the $550 million federal grant that was awarded last year to fund the construction of the project. That was a key piece of the puzzle the state was waiting for. Tony Harris of AlDOT said, quote, "We appreciate the commitment of Secretary Duffy and the Trump administration to expedite the completion of the funding process for the $550 million grant for the Mobile River Bridge. With this commitment, this is another positive step toward the completion of the Mobile River Bridge and Bayway project." When we come back, I'll sit down with State Senator Lance Bell to talk about immigration and other issues. Stay with us.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Alabama Public Television is your place for quality educational services. Free professional development for educators and childcare providers. Access to free curriculum-aligned videos, lesson plans, and instructional resources with PBS Learning Media. And all the PBS Kids programs parents know and trust. Learn something new every day with Alabama Public Television. Visit us at aptv.org/education to learn more.
James Withers Sloss started the Sloss Furnace Company in 1880 to take advantage of the mineral wealth of the Jones Valley. He built Sloss's first blast furnace the following year. A second furnace soon followed, and Sloss Furnaces produced 24,000 tons of iron in its first year of operation. Sloss Furnaces was an industry leader in innovation and design. Its superintendent of construction, James Pickering DeVell, led Sloss through a period of modernization in the 1920s that resulted in Sloss becoming the second largest producer of pig iron in the Birmingham district. A slump in the iron market took shape in the 1950s. Business began to decline, and pig iron was basically obsolete by the 1960s. Higher pollution standards finally closed the furnaces in 1970. In 1981, Sloss Furnaces was designated a National Historic Landmark and today hosts events, concerts, and a metal arts program. The site continues to stand as a testament to Birmingham's industrial past.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is State Senator Lance Bell from Pell City. Senator, thanks for coming on the show.
Good morning.
It's,
or afternoon, whatever it is right now.
What time is it? We're getting a little lost in the fog of session here. Well, yeah, it's the only after today, only 2 days left. Lots going on. Senate and the House are starting to move on some really priority bills that's been around the whole session, specifically on immigration. Wanted to ask you about that because y'all were on Capital Journal back last summer.
Yes.
After y'all had returned from the border in Texas, kind of saw some of the actions that the Texas law enforcement were taking. You went back a couple of times, I think. And y'all's package of immigration bills kind of was born out of that. So bring me into, kind of go back to the beginning and tell us why the legislature is acting on this issue based on what y'all saw at the border.
Well, under the previous federal administration, the borders were wide open. And we learned that not just Texas is a border state, Alabama was too. You start looking at the crime and talking to local sheriffs, police chiefs, and we start having influx of illegals in our communities that were committing crimes. And so that's how it all started, is law enforcement getting our attention and then talking to us. And then me, the speaker, Pro Tem Reed at the time, we took a trip to the border with Attorney General, Secretary Taylor. We all went down there to look, see what was going on, and it blew us away as how open our borders were. Then I went back the next year with another little group and went through some policy issues, met with Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas Border Czar, Immigration, the Homeland Security, and some of them, and learning more what was going on from the year previous, and it was still wide open. And the thought process was, you know, at that time, November had not got here, and we don't know who the president's going to be. But if it stays where it's at, we've got to do something to protect our citizens. So that's when we started sitting down and looked at what some of the other states were doing and try to model after them.
Well, I want, specifically your bill deals with DNA, collecting DNA
Yes.
from immigrants. This bill's actually been around a few years, though. Can you explain why it's important to collect DNA during those arrests?
Well, you collect the DNA. Right now, if you commit a felony, your DNA is being collected automatically when you're booked in jail. Well, this takes it, and we have a great CODIS system, which is identification system through Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences, and there's a lot of cold cases being solved based on that. But I had a district attorney reach out to me and said, hey, let me give you a little hint of something that happened to us a few years ago, and we're in the middle of a trial, and in my case in chief, and the lady says, said, you know, that's not really his name you have him charged under. He's really so-and-so, and he's wanted in California for murder.
Whoa.
He said, so we convict him here in this county, get his DNA, and send it out there, and lo and behold, he was out there. That was the DNA they had out there, so they were to match him and then also prosecute him in California for that murder. And then talking with forensics here, Angelo Delamana, I mean, one of the best forensic scientists in the United States. We are lucky to have him in Alabama. And this gets the DNA to him, gets him able to put it in his system earlier than the illegals going straight to the FBI and being put in the system months and months or years down the road. Within 3 to 4 days, we can have that in our system and start matching it up and tracking the people under different names. That's what it's about, is the identification changes, but the person don't, and is trying to link that crime to that person.
How does it work in practice? Like when would is it a cheek swab, something like that?
Yes.
And is it after an arrest? Is it only
It's after
for
an arrest.
undocumented?
The
or?
forensics already supplies the DNA test swab that's already in the jails. If you commit a sex crime, if you commit a felony, you're already getting that. So this just kind of takes it on the illegals. It takes it to them, but puts it in our code. It's getting faster. It's able to. This bill makes it faster to process and allows forensic sciences to go ahead and get it in their system.
Okay. Well, we'll see what actually gets to the finish line. I'm assuming most of these bills are going to pass. But are y'all confident? You've seen all this immigration stuff play out in the courts before. We've seen it federally play out now. Are y'all worried about that at all in terms of lawsuits overturning some of this, or were you confident this time
I'm
around?
confident on the DNA bill. I'm confident on it because we're already swabbing, and the courts have already said you can swab and hold that in its identification system. So I'm very confident in that. I went back to the border at the end of March, and it's completely changed, a totally different border. So if some of these bills do stall out, it's not as big of a deal as it was back when we started introducing them and getting ready.
Just because of the change in the,
Just because of the change.
enforcement. Yeah,
Yes.
well, everybody can see that. Okay, switching gears. You are the Senate sponsor for the Back the Blue bill. People are calling it police immunity bill. That is ready for the floor. It's been through committee. Man, that was a tough committee hearing on that. Is this going to pass? I mean, House Bill 202, Rex Reynolds is the House sponsor. He's worked on this a lot. Y'all worked on it together. Been through the ringer in terms of debate. Here we are towards the end. Do you think the Senate will have the ability to get to that bill, knowing that there's probably going to be a pretty good filibuster?
I have a feeling at that point it'd have to be a cloture petition. There's, as you know, based on what happened in committee, it was 2 weeks and it was pretty rough. If we don't protect our law enforcement officers and start giving them a few protections, where are we going to be in 5 years, where are we going to be in 10 years, you're not going to have anybody that wants to be in that profession. And it's already gotten bad where they're not respected now when they pull somebody over. You've got the cell phones being pointed in their face, you've got them being cussed daily. The things they have to put up with is so different than what it used to be. And I'd love to do anything we can to protect them. And the amount of hours Representative Reynolds has put in this bill has just been unbelievable. And the detail he's put into it, and working with everyone, every group you can think of. So I do hope we can get that across the finish line.
But it's one of those issues that whenever it does come up, things are going to really grind to a halt that day.
They will unravel pretty bad.
Yeah, so maybe there's a reason why it's waiting until the very end.
That's beyond my pay grade.
I understand. While I have you, I also want to ask about your bill dealing with the Alabama Film Office. Well,
Yes.
it's renaming number one. Talk about this. I find it interesting because I was reading a story the other day about Georgia and how, I guess 10 or 15 years ago, they really invested in film, and now it's just a booming industry in Georgia. Like all the Avengers movies were filmed there, for example. Talk about what your film office bill does.
Well, I got contacted by Clayne Crawford. Clayne played on the Fox TV show Lethal Weapon. Martin Riggs, phenomenal individual. Lucky to be here. He's from Clay, Alabama, just right down the road from me. We talked about it. He's now producing films, and he's having to go to Georgia to do a lot of his film work. Trying to bring some of that work here to Alabama on the tax incentives. If they come here and shoot a project, that look at the hotel rooms, the fuel, the catering, the meals, everything together that goes with it, and I do believe we will be like Georgia. We'll offset it with other taxes, taxes that will come out ahead. I think by giving a little break on the front end, we'll come out ahead on the back end.
We give incentives for all kinds of
Yes.
other projects.
But just to have an individual like him, we've got Cat Williams trying to buy Fort McClellan.
I heard about that.
We have the potential of doing a lot. When Senator Rob Stewart told me the film Selma, most of that was filmed in Georgia.
Come on,
how
that's
good
a
would that
shame.
be to
Yeah.
have that filmed here in Selma, Alabama?
Right.
And just the ability to do those things.
Forrest Gump, I think, was the same way.
They're all that way, and I just love to see some of that. So we had a $30 million cap on the filming and $2 million on music videos. They've gotten real big, and we've got a lot of that here in Alabama. So, but the House committee passed it out. They reduced the cap on it down to 20 on the filming, 2 on the music. So we'll see where it ends up. It's on the their calendar today. Actually, I think while we're filming, it's on the calendar. So hopefully it'll come out, and I'd love to at least get a few films going, get it started, and then see where we can go from next year.
It would be great if 10 to 15 years from now, because sometimes it does take that long, if we had a booming film industry just like Georgia has built. And that is really interesting about Cat Williams and McClellan, understanding that it's just ready for development there, and it would be a huge deal for Anniston.
It would be great to see our beautiful state in pictures. Instead of calling it one thing like Selma, and it's not Selma, to be able to see the real Selma on film.
Yeah, and it's, there have been a handful of films here. I'm thinking of Big Fish and stuff like that, but it shouldn't be a handful. It
Right.
should be a lot. So,
Right.
Well, we'll watch that bill, all these other ones you got. Thank you for your time,
Thank
Senator.
you. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the online video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
The Cahaba lily, named for the Cahaba River, is an aquatic plant native to the major river systems of Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. In Alabama, its best-known natural habitat is the shoals of the Cahaba River. The lily is known for the striking beauty of its 3-inch wide white flowers. Each flower's 6 petals surround a thin corona, which connects the lower portions of the stamens. The lily's scientific name, Hymenocallis coronaria, translated as beautiful crown-like membrane, accurately depicts these characteristics. The lily requires a very specialized habitat of swift-flowing water over rocks and an open canopy. The plant's bulbs and seeds spend the winter buried in the rocky riverbed. Leaves begin to emerge above the waterline in mid-April. Flowering commences in mid-May, reaching its peak in late May and early June. The showy flowers attract a variety of pollinators as well as large numbers of canoers and kayakers during the spring blooming period.
Alabama Public Television is your place for quality educational services. Free professional development for educators and childcare providers. Access to free curriculum-aligned videos, lesson plans, and instructional resources with PBS Learning Media. And all the PBS Kids programs parents know and trust. Learn something new every day with Alabama Public Television. Visit us at aptv.org/education to learn more.
APT is Alabama's storyteller. Stories of Alabama history. The arts. Alabama music. Learn more online at aptv.org.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night at the same time with full coverage of the Alabama legislature here on APT. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.